After successfully getting the franchise back on its feet to being more profitable at the box office with Batman Forever, yes, Joel Schumacher was asked back to do the next film in the franchise. But instead of a 3-year gap in between films, like the previous movies, Warner Brothers fast-tracked development for Batman and Robin to be in cinemas in only 2 years, with only one mandate from Warner Brothers being he had to make the film even more toyetic than its predecessor to cash in on those kids that were going to come and see the film. But in the meantime, Val Kilmer had decided not to reprise his role as Batman, as there was talk that him and Joel Schumacher didn't really get along on set and rarely saw eye to eye. So with the clock ticking, they got in George Clooney as Batman at short notice, as Schumacher felt Clooney was the man that could bring a lighter interpretation of the character to his vision of a live action comic book movie. And so, I give to you this is a live action superhero film that comes in at 125 minutes and debuted in cinemas on the 20th of June 1997. The movie was written by Akiva Goldsman and directed by Joel Schumacher. It was released on DVD on the 25th of March 1997 and on Blu-ray on the 19th of May 2009, as well as on 4K HD on the 4th of June 2019. So the story starts with Batman and Robin on their way to Gotham City to face the frosty threat that is the diabolical Mr. Freeze, as he plans to steal as many diamonds as he can to power his ultimate freeze ray gun and plunge the city into eternal winter. Meanwhile, the seductive Poison Ivy emerges with a plan to eradicate humanity and save the environment by teaming up with the icy villain. As Batman and Robin strive to thwart their villainous schemes, a new player enters onto the scene, Batgirl, as the trio faces their internal conflicts within their makeshift family. Can they get it together in time to stop Mr. Freeze before he turns Gotham into a frozen dystopia?
The Iceman cometh!
Oh boy, where do I even begin with this script and story? Well, let's just say it took some very bold creative liberties this time around to push even harder into that kid-friendly realm, turning this a beloved superhero franchise into what can only be described as a cringe-worthy carnival sideshow. It is a messy concoction that it just feels like it was written on the back of a napkin at a production meeting that got tore up, then got pieced back together, but all in the wrong order, giving us a plot that is more tangled than, say, Poison Ivy's vines, with Mr. Freeze threatening Gotham with an icy doom and Poison Ivy trying to turn the world into a botanical paradise at the same time. I mean, seriously, how the does that work? But they're working together with totally different outcomes. It just messes with your head if you think about it too much.
That makes no sense.
Look, the dialogue is a parade of puns and one-liners that would make the Joker cringe. Mr. Freeze's dialogue throughout the whole movie is just a constant barrage of ice-related quips. Like they raided a thesaurus for every synonym they could find of cold and just decided to throw them all in there. And on top of that, the bad dialogue, you had Poison Ivy's one-liners sounding like they were plucked from a rejected romance novel, and the dynamic duo them engaging in like tired quips that would even make the most stoic superhero fan cringe. The film tries to balance some serious moments with campy humour, but the result is just a tonal disaster. One minute you have Gotham in facing like immediate peril, and then the next we're treated to a cringeworthy ice skating scene or a bat credit card shenanigans. Ugh. As if the script couldn't decide whether it wanted to be an epic superhero spectacular or a Saturday morning cartoon. As for the character development, there is one small shining light with that, which is they look into Alfred's backstory and his struggles with McGregor syndrome. But that's where it really stops, as Batman and Robin's relationship is reduced to, what's the best way to describe it? Like just bickering that was just, they were bickering like it wouldn't be out of place in like a teenage sitcom. And the introduction of Batgirl feels forced, as the filmmakers threw her in as an afterthought without giving her a real compelling reason to join the Cape Crusaders, let alone the fact that she's supposed to be Alfred's niece. Did anyone try and work out the massive age difference there for that to be the case?
Oh, I don't like math.
To call this garbage a movie script is using the term very loosely, that's for sure. And when you start looking at all the plot holes and confusing story arcs, this movie is enough to give anyone brain freeze trying to make sense of it. So look, that is why I'm going to give this a 5 out of 30.
7 million. Never leave the cave without it.
So while this is not a direct adaptation of any specific comic book storyline that I could find in my research, it does draw some inspiration on Mr. Freeze's backstory from the Batman animated series episode Heart of Ice. But that's where it stops. That's about it, as there are no other story in this movie. There's no other stories in this movie. This movie is just strung together with a mess of one-liners, not looking into any of Batman's rich source material from the comic books. And one of the main reasons this movie looks and feels the way it does is it's because of Joel Schumacher, who was given the mandate to make this film more toyetic, which led him to create what is best described as a live-action comic book, which the actors themselves kept stating that he was on set telling them, "We're making a cartoon here." No, you're not. You're making a movie. You're not making a cartoon.
Wait, so it wasn't a cartoon?
So now if we look at the cast list here, very much like last time, very much a who's who of actors who are at the top of their game or on the rise at that time, with everyone here pretty much handpicked by Joel Schumacher himself, as he stated that when he gets an idea for who he wants for a role, that's it. There is no one else there. That's it. He's focused on that person. So look, love them or hate them, these are Joel Schumacher's, how can I put it, misguided choices in my opinion.
Woefully misguided.
So let's start with our hero of the movie, George Clooney as Batman. Well, for me, yet again, like Val Kilmer before him, his performance of the whole duality of Bruce Wayne and Batman is almost non-existent. They're like the same person. This time we get a laid-back, semi-disinterested playboy instead of a brooding and mysterious billionaire that we kind of expect. Clooney delivers a performance with all the enthusiasm of someone reading the ingredients on a cereal box, and the lack of chemistry between Clooney and O'Donnell as Batman and Robin was almost as awkward as a first date on a high school dance. As for Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, it is a disastrous performance, as instead of a chilling and menacing portrayal of a broken man who is looking to cure the love of his life, we get a performance lacking depth and emotion, glossing over his tragic backstory and reducing Mr. Freeze to a one-dimensional caricature rather than a sympathetic antagonist. From the cringeworthy puns to the over-the-top performance, It's hard to believe anyone in their right mind would have thought this would be a good idea for him to portray this character.
Not a good idea.
It's a bad idea.
Now, for Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy, well, oh God. Her over-the-top delivery of lines and her performance, it feels more like she was auditioning for a daytime soap opera, which overshadowed any potential for a genuinely menacing presence. But that was also equally cringeworthy was her attempts at seduction, which were downright laughable, to say the least. Instead of coming across as this femme fatale with this toxic allure, the character in like the character in the comics, it was more like an over-the-top drag queen with a penchant for awkward innuendos.
So awkward.
Now, Chris O'Donnell's portrayal of Robin really lacked the charisma and enthusiasm that the character is known for, and instead of a young hero who's eager to prove himself, we get this brooding and sullen sidekick who seems more interested in sulking than saving Gotham City. With the forced chemistry between Clooney and O'Donnell and the poor attempts at some emotional depths, it all falls flat, making it difficult to really invest in Robin's journey throughout the film. Now, last but not least, there is Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl. This has to be a stellar piece of miscasting if I've ever seen it, as her performance and her deliveries of lines are so uninspired. She brings all the charisma of a damp napkin to the role that should have been filled with someone with energy and enthusiasm, but instead she's turning this iconic character into literally what you would class as a forgettable footnote in the Batman cinematic universe. As this movie could go down in history as one of the biggest miscastings of all time, the blame here really solely lands on Schumacher himself for this one. And for that, this is why I'm going to give it a 4 out of 20.
Please, show some mercy. Mercy?
Okay, if we look at the disc in case, so as you can see, of course, it's the logos. We've been over this before. I don't kind of mind it. I don't mind it with the Robin symbol over the top. Doesn't look bad. With the red, yeah, that kind of worked. Is it my favorite out of the lot of them? No, but it's definitely up there. It's actually, it doesn't look too bad. And if we look at the side, same again, just that very plain text. But like I said, all together they look great. And if we look at the back, yeah, same again. Too busy trying to jam all the special features and everything on there with just a few pictures. Not a great deal yet again. Now, if we look at the disc, I like that disc. That looks cool. It looks a lot cooler than the movie does. with Freeze and the boys there. That is actually a really good picture. I like that. Overall, it's very much the same as the others. There's no real difference. They've pretty much planned the 4 of them out together. So yeah, I'm probably just going to give it the same score as all of the others, and that is give it a 7 out of 10.
Who invited you?
I was just hanging around.
So this time around, not as many features. Sure, there's more features on here than most movies that ever get put out, but for this one, for the Batman releases, this one's a bit on the light side, shall we say. But we do have a audio commentary. Shadows of the Bat Part 6 Beyond Batman. The Heroes and the Villains. A deleted scene, 4 music videos and the theatrical trailer. So as you can see, it's very scaled down from the last 3 movies. Now this time around you do get, it's a real mixed bag of opinions on these featurettes, mostly from Joel Schumacher himself, trying to defend some of his decisions that he made on the film, but then on some other occasions, he's actually standing there putting his hand up and saying, yeah, I take full responsibility for these decisions I made on this film. And you know what? It's actually refreshing to see almost all the people interviewed for this featurette being honest for a change and acknowledging the shortcomings of the film. And that was great, as opposed to trying to defend it, even though they know they're wrong. So definitely, look, check out these special features. They were actually worth a look. So because of that, even though there are some good special features, there's only a few of them on here. That's why I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
You look great. Especially for a dead woman.
As I bring up the Rotten Tomatoes scorecard, as you can see, the critics came in at 11%, while the audience came in at 16%. Absolutely no surprises here, none whatsoever, that's for sure. But there is one thing I noticed with a lot of the reviews I read. They just base their reviews on the bat nipples and the bat credit card. Look, I get it, they're not great, but don't base your whole argument in your review just around those two things. Look at the broader picture. There is so much more you can have a crack at, you know. Anyway, what can only be possibly some of the lowest scores I've seen when I've done this show. Look, we're going to round it up and we're going to get a pretty dismal score of, 2 out of 10.
Chicks dig the car. This is why Superman works alone.
So, was I excited to see this film when it came out into cinemas? Look, it was a bit of yes and a bit of no. So, for the no side, I wasn't excited after the last movie, but I was excited to see Arnold in it, which a lot of you already know. I'm a big Arnie fan, and I thought, how bad could this be?
This show's an abomination.
Yep, I could not believe what I was watching. Sure, I could see how kids would be loving this to death, but I was 22 at the time, and yeah, I wasn't impressed. I mean, how could Joel Schumacher do this to us fans who love this franchise for what it was and not what he turned it into? I mean, he really took away all the hard work that Tim Burton had put into taking people's perceptions about what Batman was on screen, which for most people was, at that time, the Adam West Batman TV show from '66. And sort of showing that Batman could be taken seriously, but instead Schumacher managed to take the reins of this franchise and literally do a 180 and turn it around to the point where it was so over the top and so campy that, God, even Adam West himself would cringe at what they had done.
Somewhat irritating.
Did any of us realize at the time that this would be the movie that changed the course of history for comic book movies? No, of course not. No one bloody did. But it has since gone down now as possibly the most important comic book film ever made.
I'm sorry, I don't think I heard you correctly.
I know, you probably just spat your drink out as I said that. But look, hear me out. Now, the reason for this is that Batman and Robin was so bad that if comic book movies were to ever go forward from that point, they had to look at a new way of doing things and just do better, which created the opportunities to make X-Men and Spider-Man in a way that represented the source material to a higher degree and did not make fun of it or its audience. And because of this film, we have all these great ones that we've had over the last 20 years or more. And even though I've just absolutely bagged the shit out of it in this, it is still one of the most important movies of our time. But for all the wrong reasons, if you know what I mean. And for me, for me personally, it is definitely a forgettable mess that I will only watch ever again under duress. Anyway, with that, I give this, even though it is an important movie, I only give this a 4 out of 20.
My most unabominable snowman have been impressed by you.
Okay, if we look at the collectibility score, I'm going to go with 2. Like I said about Forever last time, sure, if you want, you've got to get the 4 of them together. Whether the last 2 aren't that great and the first 2 are good, it doesn't matter. You've got to get all 4 of them. It's just the way it works. But if you are that very much like, no, well then, yeah, then this one is not as collectible as probably the first two. But yeah, like I said, it's usually, you've got to get the 4. And as far as availability goes, well, actually, it's still one. It's still, I would still say this is just as common as the other 3. But out of the 3, I kind of found that this one is probably, if you're buying them separately, this is sometimes the harder one to get. Even though it's still as common as Buggery, there's less of these out here. So yeah, take for that what you will. But yeah, it's still not hard to find a copy, that's for sure. So your average price, you're looking at somewhere between the $9 to $17 mark for DVD. And if you're looking at Blu-ray, you're probably looking around the $14 to $30 mark. But of course, if you're going to go upscale and go the 4K HD, that one's about the $25 to $50 mark as of this video. Now, for the final score, we get a grand total of 29 out of 100. That's a pretty dismal score for a pretty dismal movie and a sad end to a great franchise. Well, look, if you were a kid at that time, I'm sure you loved this movie. But for us die-hard fans of, shall we say, older generation, it was not the best Batman movie by a long shot.
Bad luck, I'm afraid. Time to die, little Robin.
Hey, so if you like this video, you want to see some more of my reviews, why don't you click that one there? Or maybe you want to see some of my collection updates. Got you covered too. Click that one there. And of course, don't forget to do the most important thing. Throw me a like and don't forget to hit that subscription button on the way out. Thanks again for watching and I'll see you next time.